outdoorsman that loves the fields and streams, to filter through this land of ours and fill a sportsman's dreams. Enjoy what nature holds for us, her bounty never ends. Getting back to basics with the practical sportsman. It's always an adventure, no matter where we go. From a favorite hunting spot to the hottest fishing hole. Outdoor life we all can share with family and friends. We'll do it all together with a practical sportsman. We'll do it all together with a practical sportsman.
Hello, sportsmen. Here we are, middle of October. Bow season has already started. Pheasant season coming up in a few days. We have a lot of outdoor activities to talk about. Guess what we're going to talk about tonight? We're going to start talking about what's in the bottle. Remember when we played this game about, 7-8 years ago? Well, we're back exploring this subject again. We're going to talk about deer hunting, what it takes to fool a buck's nose. The answer is synthetic stuff. Well, here we go again with the old bottle. Stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost. You're watching The Practical Sportsman. You were in a tree, and you had probably had, a little bit of Mountain Dew or Coke or something like that, and
You bet.
So go ahead, tell how you sort of called in this deer.
Well, there's many calling techniques that you can use to fool bucks, and all you're doing by doing it is to create sounds that are normal sounds that bucks hear during the rut or whatever, any time of the year really. They can't resist this type of an activity. So I purposely waited and held my urine until the wind had calmed down and died down and it was stone quiet. And at that point I started to release and it sounded really loud. And
I never heard it put that way. I released.
Yes.
What you're saying is you peed out of your tree is what you did.
That's true.
Okay, let's.
And within a very short time after that, I heard what I thought was this squirrel that I had seen before approaching from behind, so I turned around quickly to see this stupid squirrel, and here come this guy.
And this is serious. That bucks do hear a doe urinating on the leaves, and they'll go investigate that.
You betcha.
So, urinating, I shouldn't use it. Now I'm going to start saying the doe
sound.
Released. The doe released.
That's true.
Excuse me, I have to go release.
Well, let's maybe you could use a little different.
Well, now then that puts a new meaning to the word of the bow hunters use, a release aid.
Yes.
I don't. This is getting crazy, but the fact is you can tinkle from a tree. The noise on the ground will attract a doe.
As will many sounds.
Or a buck.
You betcha.
And that's one of them, and this is what you got.
You betcha. You betcha.
And you explained it very well and very genteelly.
Okay. Look for my product this fall. It's going to be on the market.
No, I'm going to listen for your product.
Okay.
Okay.
Buck fever.
Buck fever. Okay, thank you very much. Well, since that interview in 1994, Kevin Cray from Manton has developed a deer scent product that is unique in the industry. Instead of claiming that it's straight from a deer with the magic powers of the estrus cycle, Kevin tells you his formula is totally synthetic, not a trace of deer urine in it. Now, the problem with natural doe urine, according to Kevin, is that it decomposes very quickly on the ground and a buck has to sniff it within 30 seconds or the buck won't be able to detect if the doe is in heat. Well, you're probably asking, how can a synthetic product possibly interest a deer?
That's the number one concern of people, is that you can't possibly fool the nose of a whitetail with a synthetic product or a man-made product. And I'm here to tell you that it's far superior to anything natural. One of these 8-ounce bottles is the equivalent of 2 gallons of a natural urine right off the bat. Because of the concentration, it is time released up to months wherever you apply it. And any moisture that hits that will reactivate it, doesn't wash it away. Because it is man-made, all these chemicals are man-made or inorganic material, so it'll never break down with age. Mitch Rompola took a new state record last year with a 4-year-old product. So it'll never break down, and what that does for you, it gives you fresh product no matter how old, so the whitetail will never spook from it. Just huge advantages to synthetics.
Yeah, but urine, I mean, the deer urine is specific to deer only, isn't it?
Well, it really doesn't matter. Urine is urine is urine is urine. They all break down chemically identical. They do vary a little in odor according to what you eat or drink, but guess what? That has no effect as to whether a whitetail will come to it or not. Actually, they will come to synthetic better than any other urine because of the concentration level. They assume if I leave an ounce, like we just did back here, that 4 or more deer have urinated in the same location because of the concentration level. That's quite common. They're just another animal, and they urinate in response to other urine being there.
Now, I read some of your literature, and in there it says that I can use my own urine, and in fact that's even better than the stuff I can buy over the counter, the other deer scent. So why shouldn't I just use my own urine?
Well, and you can, and I'm not telling you you can't, but again, a natural urine has to break down quickly. It doesn't last long wherever you put it. So again, even fresh human urine, which will work fine, will not perform like a synthetic will perform. There still is no comparison.
Now, what about deer urine that's sold in stores right now, though, that says it's from the estrus cycle of the deer?
I'm sorry, that's kind of funny. There is no such thing as saving estrus urine. The difference between normal doe urine and estrus doe urine is pheromones. And pheromones have been documented to have a maximum lifespan of 10 minutes. There's no way a pheromone can last longer than that once it's exposed to the air.
Now, why is that?
It's just too volatile. It's so volatile, some of them break down within 30 seconds. Many of them start to break down. So there's no way to save estrus urine. If you could, here's how it would work for you. Let's crack the bottle open and let's get ready, because the dominant buck's on his way and he's required by nature to breed those pheromones or to come to them and try to breed them. Once I kill that dominant buck, I better watch out because another one's on his way. That's the way a real pheromone would work in the wild, and that's the way they really do work. They'll fight over the right to breed this pheromone. You don't buy pheromones in a bottle. You never will be able to. And even if someone like me comes along and develops a synthetic, it will immediately be outlawed because of the overall effectiveness on the mature whitetail buck. There's just no way you can do it.
Ah, those elusive sex pheromones. Now that was one sales pitch that sold a lot of bottles for a few years, but the scent industry could never back up their claims with scientific facts. Now we have Kevin Cray, who has developed space-age products, chemicals that replace some of the odors that deer use to communicate. But he uses these products in combination with visual attractants like scrapes and rubs. For you hunters who like to experiment with scents, tune in the week after next. We'll show you Kevin Cray's new synthetic scent system. I've got to take a moment to clarify something. Some people think I'm taking on the role of a DNR watchdog. Okay, that's true. I confess I do have a basic mistrust of government, and I'm saying this in a patriotic way. See, our forefathers mistrusted the power of government. That's why they wrote the Constitution the way they did. Anytime people allow a state to make laws and enforce laws against the people, that government has got to be watched so the governmental officials don't abuse the power that the people give them. Now, I happen to think that the DNR is overstepping and abusing its authority. Now, many sportsmen agree with me. Now, like the older gentleman who called us on Monday to tell us that he was squirrel hunting this past weekend on state land. He shot a squirrel, skinned it out, and, well, just the way we showed on the show last week. DNR officer comes up to him and says to the guy, mind if I look in your ice chest? The guy says, sure. Here's the squirrel that I just got. Well, the CO wrote him a ticket, confiscated the squirrel, told him and his buddy that they were lucky that the CO didn't confiscate his guns. Well, what'd the guy do wrong? Look at page 17 of the hunting guide. It says, you cannot destroy the identity or evidence of the sex of any bird or animal. Well, the CO said, I can't identify what kind of animal that is in the ice chest. You know, like it was, what, an otter or a baby elk? I mean, what if the guy had a pork chop or a chicken or a T-bone steak in the ice chest? I mean, you think the CO could identify that? Well, come on, any nimwit with minimal hunting experience can recognize a squirrel carcass. But COs are writing tickets like this every day. They're turning law-abiding hunters into people with criminal records. Now that's an abuse of power. And that's one of many reasons that I'm a DNR watchdog. We can't let the executive branch of government continue wasting our money and abusing its power like that. When most people think of safety in the world of hunting, they think of gun safety or bow and arrow safety. But in the world of bow hunting, one important safety consideration is where you stand while you bow hunt. For those of you who choose to hunt from a tree, Tom Nelson from Anderson Archery answers the question, how important is a safety harness?
Without a doubt, the most important piece of equipment in my bow hunting attire has got to be this tree stand safety harness, or climbing harness as a lot of people call them. This could definitely save your life. Whether I'm hanging a tree stand or up in place doing a bow hunt, I always have my safety harness on. This climbing harness is extra special for the fact that as you're putting up your stand or taking it down, and that's when 90% of the falls happen, is climbing up your stand, breaking a branch, breaking a tree step, slipping as you're getting in and out. Always have a harness on. Use it from the time you start to get up in your stand, as far as the climbing process goes, and put it on as soon as you're getting down. With this harness, even if you're climbing up with your tree steps, if you should slip, it's only going to go as far as the first branch or first tree step and catch you. You might fall 12 inches, but it's a lot better than falling 12 feet. Always utilize this. When you're putting your tree stand up, I'll always get in place, undo my stand, hook myself in really tight, a couple of lashes, so I'm not going to fall at all. I can lean back from the tree as I'm putting my stand in place, pretty much hands-free operation without the fear of falling down and breaking my back. This can be a lifesaver. Don't go in the woods without it.
Okay, now we can see it. I'm going to bring it around. Technology has brought us a lot of fishing inventions in the 1990s, and one of them has been some new kinds of fishing line, which are far more expensive than monofilament line. Professor Finns is often asked, what do you think about these new super lines like Spiderwire?
I only recommend the super lines to maybe the top or 10 or 20% of the most experienced fishermen. They have a big advantage in sensitivity, but they have some drawbacks for the average fisherman. And those drawbacks are that they're difficult to tie a knot in. If you happen to get a knot that you don't want, or a little wind knot or a backlash, they're very difficult. They can damage your equipment. They can break the spool on the reels when they contract after the line dries out in the reel. They can break the rod because there's no give to it like an expansion like there is with monofilament, and they can wear out the guides on the rods if you don't have the super guides. I would really suggest going to a good quality monofilament and go with super sharp hooks. If you go with super sharp hooks, that can offset the advantage that the super braids offer.
Get them up, girls.
Hunting dog trainer Mark Raymond knows the value of a good bird dog, but he also knows that a dog's ability does not include the skill of developing a strategy for hunting a particular area. That's left up to the master. Which brings us to the question, when I approach a field with my dog, where should I start to look for pheasants?
Well, immediately after you enter a field, you should be prepared. You should always be prepared. When you walk into that field, be ready, watch your dog. Birds could be right there in 50 yards or less. But it depends on the size of the field as well, on where you're going to have the bird cover. If you hunt enough, you'll learn a difference, your dog will learn a difference of what is bird cover. If you have a large field, don't focus your hunt on the center of this big field. The birds are going to be more into patches of cover or along the edge. If you've got food plots on the edge of the field, that's where you want to go out. You've got a grass field with corn, beans next to it. Closer to that edge is probably going to be more productive than in the very center of the field, unless you're catching the birds right the last half hour of daylight or the first half hour of daylight. That's where the birds are going to be setting and roosting back into the field. But other than that, they're going to be next to the food plots.
The Michigan Hunting Guide says a raised platform means a horizontal surface that increases the field of vision of a person beyond the field of vision that would normally be attained by that person standing on the ground. Which brings us to the question, if the floor of a gun blind is a foot or so off the ground, but the windows are at eye level of the hunter standing on the ground. Is this legal? We asked Attorney Sal Gani to advise us.
Yes, in my opinion, it is legal. I checked with a DNR officer to confirm that. The law indicates that a person cannot hunt from a raised platform if it increases their field of vision beyond that it would be if they're standing. Now, in a circumstance, if you're, say, 5 or 6 foot tall, you're sitting on a platform 1 or 2 foot tall, I'm sure that your eye level or taking level is going to be much lower than your eye level. It's legal as long as it doesn't increase your field of vision.
The emphasis among deer hunters on most outdoor TV shows is shooting a big buck with a big rack. However, the reality is that most hunters are not trophy hunters. They want to get a deer so they can eat venison, because you can't buy venison from your local grocery. Preserving deer meat begins the moment your deer is down, not when you take it to the deer processor. Bob Lacina from Ovid has processed thousands of deer over the years, and he's bothered by hunters who bring in spoiled deer meat in warm weather. So he answers the question, what can I do to keep the flies off my deer carcass until I get it to the processor?
Well, this is what every hunter should have. Like when they shoot a deer in October, or even in gun season when it's warm. This is to protect the deer from the flies who get in here. Just take this, just pour it out in your hand like that. You'll never get too much.
And this is just regular?
That's just regular black pepper.
Okay.
Just take that, throw it right in there like that. Fill that right up. Rub it in there.
And the flies won't bother that?
Fly bother that. You will have no maggots in your meat. Guaranteed.
So if it's even questionable, borderline temperature-wise?
Right, do it anyways. I mean, because as soon as it warms up, it may be frost one day in the morning, be 30 degrees, but it may warm up to 55 degrees at noon or 1 o'clock, and then the flies come back out. Even inside the cavity, just take it and just, throw it inside, rub it all over, wherever there's any flesh meat. And that will stop the flies, and your meat will last longer.
Once your good quality deer meat is processed, you ought to try Brett St. Pierre's recipe for Whitetail Diablo. Try this with a roast. You begin by slicing the roast into 1/4-inch slices, and you soak these in a marinade overnight. Now, this marinade is the Diablo part. You start by soaking 7 dried chili peppers in water for an hour until they're soft. Then put the peppers in a blender, add 2 cups of water, 2 cloves of garlic, 1 tablespoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of salt, and a half a can of beer. Fire up the blender and puree this into a marinade. Now that's what you soak the meat in overnight. The next day, bake this in a covered roasting pan for 1.5 to 2 hours. Serve it on a bed of lettuce, garnished with jalapenos. Or maybe you want it ringed with rollades. Well, whatever your choice, Brett St. Pierre's Whitetail Diablo is featured in the October-November Outdoor Digest magazine.
There's the little buck. And there's the bigger buck. And, oh my God, there's a 4th one, John.
John Majewski from Saginaw sent us this home video he shot 2 months ago from his house. That's right, the Majewski's yard backs up to a Saginaw County farm field. One July evening, just at sundown, this quartet of bucks stepped out from the woods, one at a time. What can you say about this?
Look at the rack on this one. They're not even scared. Oh my God. Look at this one.
You don't have to be a deer hunter to know these are incredibly large racks on these bucks, unusually large. 4 of them in one field. Being the middle of July, these racks probably aren't full grown, but they're close. I mean, how much bigger could they possibly grow? These racks are not dwarfs, but for some reason I want to name them after dwarfs. Now, I think I'd call this one Doc, because he's checking us out. Now this one, for some reason, I want to call Dopey. I don't know, it just seems to fit. Now, obviously, this is Grumpy, a little short on personality. This guy we'll call Bashful. I don't know why, I guess we're just running out of good dwarf names. But John Majewski decided to walk with the camera to get closer. Now, who's going to believe this fairy tale if John doesn't document it on video?
Look at the spread on that one. That's another 10-point.
Well, thank you, John Majewski, for the video fairy tale about the big bucks of Saginaw County, and there they go, wagging their tails behind them. All in all, there's plenty to do. It's getting colder. Hunting season is upon us. You get outdoors. It's a great place to be. I'll see you next week.
Lunchtime, and all of a sudden I looked out across this field and saw this rack stick up out of a bean field. And just couldn't believe it. Watched it for 10 minutes and wouldn't leave, so I just ran home. I had to go about a mile home to get my bow. I didn't even have it with me. Lucky.
So you didn't have your bow.
I was just moving my tree stand.
Now, when you said ran,
Well, I ran about a half a mile to my car and then drove about 40 across a cornfield, and I got there.
got your bow, parked it back, and then ran back.
Ran back, and he was still there in the same spot. He'd stick his head up about every 2 minutes and take a look around real good. And so I got on my hands and knees and started crawling across the field. About an hour later, I got to him, and a small one jumped up, took off. He was in a cornfield. It was real windy, and couldn't hear a thing. He stood up and started walking right straight across the field toward me.
Which way was the wind blowing?
Right in my face.
Right in your face.
Yeah.
So that was perfect.
Yeah, and I waited and got down there, got an arrow knocked, and when he was about 25 yards away, I drew back, and about 20 yards, he stopped, turned, looked 180 degrees the other way, and grunted, and I just let it go right in his chest.
Wow, so you made a perfect shot after all of that.
Yeah.
Were you shaky at all?
Oh, yeah, I slashed my fingers. I drew once on him when he was about 40 yards away, and I had to let off because he was taking his time, and I cut my fingers, and I was bleeding all over. And
on the broadheads?
Yeah.
Man, that's something else. And this, how many points did you think it had? Did you count them before then?
I got to 12, and then I
dumped out?
Yeah, I thought I better take care of business first.
Well, this turned out to be a 19-point buck, 22.5-inch spread, 10.5-inch tines, and of course, it's a non-typical state record. But
211.
Yeah, but boy, look at the symmetry on here, though. We have these forked antlers here that match. That's one heck of a buck.
Yep.
What are you going to do to top this?
I don't even care.
Paul Kentner, congratulations. What a story. The state record buck with a bow.